Thank you so much for your attendance tonight. My name is Vanessa Castro-Scott. I am one of the 2019 Riverside County Democratic Party Boswick Activist of the Year awardees, a proud public elementary school teacher of 17 years teaching for Hemet Unified School District, and a hopeful running to win a seat on the Democratic Central Committee to represent Assembly District 42. And I will be moderating this evening's town hall. Let us start with introducing our power panel of candidates. Dr. Liam O'Mara. Dr. Liam O'Mara is the endorsed Democratic candidate running for the 42nd Congressional District, which stretches from Eastvale to Temecula. He is a university professor specializing in the history of ideas, the Middle East, and the world. He is also a lifelong union member. Liam is endorsed by the National Organization of Women, the California Teachers Association, the California Young Democrats, People for the American Way, the California Progressive Alliance, and many others. The economic focus in his platform is helping him to build a progressive coalition large enough to unseat the long-term incumbent. Let's give him a hand. After I give the introduction, our candidates are going to have a 5-minute time frame to give a statement as well. Candidate Skyler, right up front, is going to be our timekeeper. He will let you know when you have a minute left and then 30 seconds left as well. Thank you, Skyler.
You need to get pretty close to this thing. Hi, I'm Liam O'Mara, a history professor and congressional candidate in the 42nd District of Riverside County, and I'm running for Congress to restore the promise of those bold progressive visions that built the middle class in the first place. Now, my family is working class. My father worked the docks for 50 years, and my mother ran a child care center. Both were union members. My parents split when I was 4, and I worked a variety of jobs in high school and afterwards. I worked maintenance and construction. I was a union fry cook at Disneyland. I was a casual longshoreman in the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. And I still wear my steel-toe boots because they remind me of who I am. But I jumped into college at around age 30, and like most people, I didn't have a college fund or a family trust fund. I had to work all the way through to do this. I'm now the first in my family with a college degree and went on to a master's and PhD from UC Irvine. My day job is teaching Middle East and world history, and I've been doing that for a dozen years. I'm an adjunct, they call it, which means I teach part-time on 3 different college campuses, often with no benefits at all, and I drive a lot. I spend a lot of time in the car, a minimum of 32,000 miles every year for the past decade. In my classrooms, I have to look my students in the eyes and tell them that policies passed in Washington will rob most of us of opportunities that previous generations took for granted. Many will now graduate with mountains of debt. Right? Education is no longer a path into the middle class. Many Americans cannot afford to buy a home. Many Americans cannot even afford to rent an apartment. I know people with graduate degrees who are living in their cars because the pay in their field is so low and the rent is so high. Anyone in here renting like me? Right? Is the rent too damn high?
Yes.
Okay, so after 40 years of declining wages and a rising cost of living, we've lost 20% of the middle class. Many in the media and politicians will lie to us and avoid talking about the real issues and the real problems dragging down the economy here. No, the stock market is not the economy. It's getting harder and harder to pay our bills, and it's not because we're not working our tails off. And it's not because immigrants are stealing our jobs. It's because of economic mismanagement in Washington. My partner and I struggled to afford health care coverage. Like a lot of us, she went without for many years in order to pay the rent. When she was diagnosed with cancer at age 35, if not for the Medicaid expansion, she could have been in real trouble. I've suffered many years of severe housing insecurity because I chose to maintain my coverage despite its cost. What sense does it make to force people into emergency rooms for preventable illnesses, or to force people into medical bankruptcies and homelessness, or for all of us to pay twice as much as any other country for health care? It's time we start talking about the real issues. A tax system which has made the 1% ever richer, but which has taken $1 trillion in wealth from the bottom 50%. A healthcare system which provides substandard and overpriced care, and not even for all Americans. A race toward automation that has taken millions of jobs and threatens 47% of the jobs remaining. An environmental crisis which literally threatens our existence and demands serious investment to counter. And a war machine which pumps cash from our wallets into a handful of corporations and literally makes us less safe. We should invest instead in American lives. We should train people for the jobs of tomorrow and stop giving handouts to the rich. I think it's time we really put Americans first, not corporations and not the billionaires. It's time for a second New Deal. It's time we ensure all Americans are housed and fed so that people can put their lives back together. It's time we realize the original promise of universal health care and pass Medicare for all. It's time we got ahead of the climate crisis with bold green investment and set free our ingenuity, as we did during the space race. It's time we fixed our aging infrastructure and caught up with the rest of the rich world. The US has gone from first in the world in living standards to 17th. Something has to give. I've spent most of my life studying history and public policy, and I can help lead the needed change in direction. With your help, I'll keep fighting to put our country and Riverside County back on the course that really made America great. I'm Liam O'Mara, and I want to represent you in Congress.
Up next, Joy Silver is a businesswoman and housing advisor with 30-plus years of experience in healthcare and elder care, and is currently bringing more affordable housing to Coachella Valley and is your endorsed candidate for California Senate District 28. A consummate professional, Joy has earned endorsements from Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis, Senator Leyva, Assemblyman Jose Medina, and State Treasurer Mock. Joy has a strong environmental platform focused on green energy, clean air, and saving the Salton Sea. Please give it up for Joy.
Yay! I love you, Joy.
I love you too.
Isn't it all about love?
Yeah.
You know, my name is Joy Silver, and I'm running for State Senate District 28. And it's about time that State Senate 28 had somebody that represents them.
Yeah.
Now, you may feel like, I don't really feel any difference in Senate District 28 because the senator isn't there anymore. Guess what? You probably don't. He's doing exactly what he did for us out of the job as he did in the job. And that's nothing. We have a war of the soul of this country going on right now. There used to be a Republican Party. That's gone. There used to be the ability to work across the aisles. That's gone. I mean, if you're going to work across the aisle, you have to at least say and agree there is an aisle. That's way gone. So you have the autocrats who are funding other candidates so that they can keep and put their policies of cruelty in place. And what we stand for are the policies of compassion. And that's going to take a great amount of unification of our party and of our people, whether they're conservative, independent, progressive, and moderate. And I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the dark money and the things that happen behind closed doors and who picks who the candidates are and who decides who they are. I read your post today. You were right there. And it's critical to know who's really going to have the guts to stand up and say what's good for California. Now, I come from the working class. My father, well, I'm a cop's kid. And I know what it means to struggle to make ends meet. I went to public schools in a state university. And I got an education. And that education is what gave me hope and the ability to make my way in the world. I started reading when I was age 3. Now, I didn't have my mother had mental health challenges. But what I had by learning to read, and that's why I'm a fierce advocate for early childhood education, because that is what's going to set each child up for the success in their life. I was also the kid that was out on the street. I had to leave home at an early age, and my childhood was not a pretty one due to my mother's challenges. I was the kid who found herself out on the street having to choose between a bar of soap and a can of beans. But I'm a fighter, and to this day I stand up against injustice wherever I find it. I hitchhiked my way from Philadelphia to Boston, hell-bent on finishing my education, because when I get focused on something, nothing stops me. Not somebody's opinion, not having money. Get it done. That's why I want to run. I became sick, and for a short time, I found some relief through the programs of Medicaid and food stamps, and these programs saved my life. And so I know from personal experience how those social programs and those emergency programs can help a person stay alive. Because without those programs, you wouldn't see me here today. I had a career in healthcare after that, started my way as a community outreach worker, and worked my way up, built a senior living community, and today I work with a non-profit affordable housing developer bringing more affordable housing to Riverside County. So let me tell you some of the issues of why I'm running. I want to protect and serve our communities and our environments and bring good, paying, sustainable jobs to Riverside County. And that includes creating and supporting an environment for new ideas and new businesses, because we have to invest in new businesses. I have 1 minute. I could probably take another 10, but I'll tell you this. I'm running because Riverside County needs more affordable housing, and we have to tackle the homelessness crisis. I'm running because our state needs health care for all, including long-term care. Nobody should have to choose between seeing a doctor or eating that day like I once did. And I'm running to develop the renewable energy economy. Get away from those fossil fuels and fixing the solvency and protecting the environment and bringing those 21st century jobs to our district. Now I'm ready to fight for our fair share of funding because Riverside County cannot afford to wait. I'm not talking more taxes. I'm talking about bringing back some of the taxes we're already paying to fix those things that we need fixed here. And there's one thing you know, if Melendez wins, it isn't going to happen. So I will stand up for you, and you will stand with me, and we will be the voice that makes the change that's needed in Riverside County today. My name is Joy Silver, and I'm running for California. Thank you so much.
We have Liz Lavertu. She is the endorsed Democratic candidate running for California's 71st Assembly District. She is currently the chair of the Spring Valley Community Planning Group and the director of administration for the San Diego County Democratic Party. Liz has been fighting and advocating for the issues in her community for over 20 years. Liz wants to bring that same passion and perseverance to Sacramento and create a more affordable life for all. Liz.
So I am running for state assembly in the 71st Assembly District. I'm not lost, I know that's not here, but a lot of people in the surrounding community around here do fall into the 71st Assembly District. So if you live or you have friends or family that live in East Temecula, South Hemet, Idlewild, Anza, Borrego, Ocotillo Wells, Switch Creek, down in San Diego even, in Spring Valley, El Cajon, Lakeside, Hamul, Jacumba, Winter Gardens. I know I'm missing like 25 other ones, but that's where I'm running, so please talk to them. I'm a mom of two. One of my kids is at Cuyamaca Community College, and the other one is going to be going into high school next year. I'm running for them. I'm running for you. Because as everybody up here has told you, life is getting more unaffordable. The American dream, the California dream, is diminished. We need to make sure that the people who are children, our future, are getting those same economic opportunities and the ability to have an affordable life here in California. My oldest son, the one in college, he looks at me, he's like, Mom, when I graduate, I'm looking right now at jobs in the area, and what I would make, I wouldn't be able to afford rent in a one-bedroom apartment. He's like, how am I supposed to live? And I'm like, well, you can live with me, but not forever. So, he's looking at, the East Coast. He's looking at states, that are more affordable. We've lost more people to Texas, and we're probably going to be losing congressional seats because of it. Because we have not kept up to the American California dream here. I'm fighting because everybody needs health care. Health care is a human right. There are many people who die for things that could have been preventable because they can't afford to go to the doctor. It's a passion point to me because my oldest son, again, his name's Evan, we'll just call him out Evan. When he was born 18 years ago, I didn't know what to expect. Even after I read what to expect when expecting. But I look and he's born and the doctors are telling me he's blind. I didn't expect that. And I definitely didn't expect that, then the doctors are like, but it's okay, we can do all these surgeries and, we can give him limited vision and, it will be good, I'm like, okay, great, let's do this. The insurance company is like, not a medical necessity, we're not gonna cover that. So I had to sit while my baby was in the operating room at just a few days old, fighting with the insurance company. And I fought with them for over 3 years to get them to cover what I believed was a medical necessity for my child to give him vision. People shouldn't have to do that. People shouldn't have to fight because medical says it's vision and vision says it's medical. We need everybody to have medical, to have vision, to have hearing, to have, be able to go to the dentist. A lot of people skip that part, and that's an important part of our health, and they skip it because it's too expensive. Even with insurance, they're coming thousands of dollars out of pocket, My mom is a dental hygienist. I hear these stories all the time. Oh, a bridge, a crown, a this, a that, thousands of dollars out of pocket. They have insurance. This makes no sense. We need to stop living this way. We need to stop nickel and diming people just to have a healthy lifestyle. Also, homelessness, it's not just an issue here. It's not just an issue down in San Diego. It is statewide. That's right. Homelessness, it is a crisis. And we need people at the state level who are willing to grab the tax dollars that Gavin Newsom's like all these hundreds of millions of dollars for homelessness and bring them back to our community. We paid our taxes. Let's get that money back and working for us. These people are sleeping on the streets. In Hemet, if I'm not mistaken, I heard that 96 people died on the street of Hemet because they didn't have shelter. That's unacceptable. We have a responsibility as a community to help everybody out, regardless of their socioeconomic status, regardless of anything. There's tons of children who are homeless, who are going to school homeless, and we have the money as a state to help them, and we will actually end up saving taxpayer money in the long run by implementing services, by doing homeless shelters with wraparound services, by doing short-term housing and long-term housing, and making sure that people have the behavior and mental health, facilities accessible. There's so much more, but it looks like that I'm out of time, but hopefully I can answer your questions. Thank you so much. Liz Lavertu, State Assembly, 71st Assembly District.
Let's see if this one works a little better. Yes. Good. Okay, next we have Kate Schwartz. She is the endorsed Democratic candidate running to become your Assembly representative in District 75. She is an elected Regional Health District Director and a licensed healthcare provider who has been an advocate for patients and families over the past 34 years. Kate is a native Californian with a graduate degree from Columbia University and plans to work in Sacramento for better housing, infrastructure, healthcare, and environmental action for her Assembly district. Please welcome Kate.
They can hear it again.
That was my intro. Good evening, everyone in Riverside County. So happy to be here. Yes, I am running to become your new representative in Sacramento for Assembly District 75. That does cover Temecula and then goes on down south to the southernmost part of Escondido. And I am current elected. I have been elected to the Fallbrook Regional Health District Board. It was a general election. I was the highest vote getter by a very wide margin, and I ran on the concept that a health board should really have a licensed healthcare provider on that board. In a similar vein, we have an Assembly District representative who is at the state level on our health committee and has absolutely no experience in healthcare. She is the co-owner of a t-shirt shop, as her claim to fame, and then moved into the Escondido City Council. I would very much like to be on that health committee for all of you and be elected in November. So why am I running? I would like to see meaningful representation in our assembly district and meaningful change for our communities. I'm passionate about affordable and accessible health care for all Californians, as Liz just mentioned, affordable housing for our communities, addressing the homelessness crisis, and particularly with our veterans, ensuring that they receive the help and services they need. I'm very passionate about improving our transportation infrastructure, particularly with respect to public and mass transit for our commuters, and protecting our green spaces and conservation areas. I would like to ask you to please join me in my prescription for change in Sacramento in 2020. I'd like to begin with a new group by telling you a little bit about my personal story, because not all of you may have met me previously. But I am not inexperienced with tough challenges and hard-won victories in life. Tough for me was hearing that my husband was diagnosed with lymphoma when my son was 7 years old. Tough was losing half of our family income due to that illness. Tough was working 2 jobs while caring for a seriously ill spouse and an elementary school-age child for us to survive. And tough was losing my husband when my son was 10 years old and becoming a single parent at that time, always working 2 jobs in order to do so. But we met those tough challenges with that determination that I have, and today I stand before you running for our Assembly District 75, and my son graduated from UC Berkeley with 2 degrees and works here in the state of California managing our water resources. I intend to apply the same level of determination that I have in my personal life to representing all of you and our family values in Sacramento. I'll tell you a little bit about what I would like to accomplish. I see one of the major overarching issues of our time is our quality of life here in California. And enhancing our quality of life within our district encompasses a number of interrelated issues needing to be addressed. We need to solve the traffic congestion, which is tied to the air quality climate problems that the long commutes create, while reducing miles traveled for our commuters to work by both updating our transportation infrastructure and creating 21st century transportation systems, which will include transportation to hub systems, offering a variety of transit options, and encouraging through subsidies increased electric vehicle use and increased availability of EV charging stations throughout Riverside and San Diego counties. We need improved and updated mass transit options. I just recently completed an interview for a local North County newspaper, and they were asking me about the bullet train, and my response was, the only bullet train we need is one from Murrieta to San Diego. Thank you very much. I am in a unique position to assist with statewide and regional solutions, as I have dedicated my career to issues of health, homelessness, healthcare, and social services issues. I served on a startup team that created a particular crisis residential treatment center for TAY-aged youth, ages 18 to 25, where we housed the young adults, and we also provided behavioral health care services as well as social services, educational services, vocational job training, etc. I have actually done the work, as opposed to my opposition, who has sat on a lot of committees and health committees and received awards, but I've been out in the community doing the work. I intend to work for all of you and for all of us to bring to Sacramento our needs and to bring that funding back here to our region to improve our quality of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. Next, we have Jerry Carlos. Jerry Carlos is a candidate for the 67th California Assembly District. He's lived in Southern California all of his life and in Western Riverside County since the age of 17. He served his country as an Army infantry sergeant and as a Riverside County deputy sheriff, patrolling the same area he hopes to represent in Sacramento. His desire is to make the Inland Empire a great place to live. Please welcome Jerry.
Hi. I'm not going to tell you what I would like to do, because someone like Jorge is going to ask me that question afterwards. How would you do something? You did that to me before. I was totally unprepared. All I'm going to be is real simple here. This is me. When my hair was all black, I actually did work this area. My day started at 11:45 p.m. when we had a briefing in the Elsinore station. About 20 minutes, then we get in the black and white and drive around. I had an area that was from Rainbow Canyon to Corona to Orange County to Paris, all by myself for several years working graveyard. This very street here, Murrieta Hot Springs Road, I can remember someone I picked up on it's called an NCIC warrant. He was just walking along at about 3 in the morning, right near what is now the college, the Christian college. And I just kind of wondered, what's he walking around there for? Picked him up, and he was wanted for armed robbery out of Chicago, just walking through Murrieta at 3 in the morning. One of my most serious incidents was the day that my daughter was born. My first daughter was born on November the 18th, 1974. I decided to come to work early. Came to work early. Someone had stabbed their wife at a bar here in Murrieta, and I decided to go out with my sergeant after everyone else had gone out, and they brought the name back into the dispatch office, and we're looking for this guy. And my sergeant goes, I think I know where that guy lives. So we went down that street, and at that time there weren't a whole lot of street lights in Murrieta. There weren't any curbs in Murrieta. There weren't signals in Murrieta any more than there were in Elsinore at the time. So we kind of go down there, and my sergeant's just like looking and going, I think he's down there. I think he's down there. So we stopped. He got out his side, I got out my side, and someone put a shotgun to my head. And I'm thinking, Sergeant, not down there, right here. So my shifts were usually over 8 or 9 o'clock, depending if I had arrested anybody at the end, and whatever else you have to do for paperwork in the station at the end. Then I go home to Corona, rest for a couple hours. I was a head coach at the University of California, Riverside, and I would be there by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, do my coaching until about 5 to 6, then go home, take my, all I'm doing all the time are changing uniforms. And I was running a program for City of Corona, a recreational program from 7 to 9 p.m. And then I go home, rest for about an hour and a half, wake up, change uniforms, and go back to work and do it again. Every 4th weekend, I drove from Corona. On Friday night, I would leave around 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and I'd drive from Corona to City of Tucson, where I was a National Guard military policeman. That was my schedule for a couple years. So I'm tough, I'm old, but I'm still tough, and I can still do a lot. How much time we have?
A minute 30.
A minute and 30. So I will yield that to someone else so you can give me more questions later on. Jerry Carlos, 67th District, which is the year I graduated from high school.
Thank you, Jerry. Edison Gomez-Krauss is an ESL teacher running for 3rd District Supervisor in Riverside County. He is an ANZA resident with a bachelor's in gastronomy. He is a first-generation Mexican-American born in Southern California and has worked with international organizations on both sides of the border as an interpreter, community organizer, and animal rights activist. He is chair of 8071 at the Riverside County Democratic Central Committee, served on the Anza Valley Mountain Communities Municipal Advisory Council, and is a founding member of the farmers' rights advocacy group, the High Country Growers Association. Please welcome Edison.
Thank you, Vanessa. Good evening, everyone. My name is Edison Gomez-Krauss, running for 3rd District Supervisor here in Riverside County. And I'm running because I believe we deserve a government that values its people more than its corporate donors. And we see that far too often nowadays. personally, I'm not bound by corporations. If you've noticed, I'm not bound by special interests. My allegiance is to the people of the residents of Riverside County. You've noticed that I'm one of the few that were not mentioned. I'm not endorsed by the Democratic Party, but I am running against an incumbent who has outspent us 10-1, and we blocked that endorsement. He got it last time, and he did not get it this time around. He got the endorsement of the Inland Empire Labor Council last time, and he did not get it this time around because we were here. And it's a clear signal that people are ready for real representation. I live out in Nanta, and again, you might not relate to me a lot because I live in the mountain communities, but we are in the same district, and we don't see our supervisor unless he's running for re-election. For the first 3 years, he's a ghost, and then when he's running for re-election, everywhere you go, there he is, handing out gift cards, taking photo ops, and that's not how you represent a people. Young people especially, and I'm saying this very openly because I see 60% bald heads and gray hair. We're fed up because we don't see that representation. And as a teacher personally, I take offense by elected officials who govern in 2- and 4-year increments, as if our lives were lived in office terms of elected officials. Hell no, we live our lives entirely. I teach my students, and the seeds I sow in them, I hope will flourish in 30 years. That's what I want. But our supervisors, our assemblymen, our senators, they're only thinking about re-election, and they're playing it safe because they don't want to lose their cushy job. How many of you know who your supervisor is? Show your hands. Ouch. Okay, yeah, it's the highest ranking local position in Riverside County, in any county. And we don't know who they are, and we don't know what they're doing, but they have as much of an impact on our lives as our congressmen, as our assembly members, as our senators, but we just don't know who they are. And we see that in my community in particular, and Riverside County, the 3rd district, has a very large number of senior citizens. And we see a lack of services to them and a lack of availability. Well, no, a lack of promotion. The services are there. Services for veterans are there. Services for the elderly are there, but they just don't take the time to tell you. And that's their job. They're our tax dollars. We're paying into the system, and we expect to get an equal distribution of services anywhere we are. In the rural communities where 60% of our people are elderly, we have a $19,000 a year median income, we don't have public transport. And half of our residents drive down to Hemet, drive down to Temecula every single day. Some people can't make that trip. And we need to make sure that every single individual is represented out there. So there are houses where the USPS doesn't get to. Idlewild doesn't have door-to-door delivery. Literally, you have to have a P.O. box or you will not get mail. So we're running for those people, for the forgotten. And honestly, we're all forgotten, even in the cities. So I'm a founding member of the High Country Growers Association of small farmers, cannabis farmers particularly, who were recriminalized after Prop 64, which you think, I voted for weed to be legal. Well, I'm sorry, but it's not truly in Riverside County. They're selling permits to farm for $60,000 plus. That is not legalization. That is exclusion. That is pay to play. And this year, the Riverside County Sheriff destroyed $390 million worth of cannabis products. I don't smoke it, and I don't care if you do, but personally, if you were to tax that at 1%, you have $3.9 million. You tax that at 2%, you have 6. We cut animal services by $2.4 million this year. Mental health services have not increased. They've remained stagnant for the last 8 years, yet homelessness continues to increase 20% every single year. That is not representation. And I'm going to end this with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., who's my favorite. It says, "True compassion is more than just flinging a coin to a beggar. It comes to see that the edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring," and that's what we need in Riverside County. We need to restructure this whole damn thing. Named Edison Gomez-Krauss. Thank you very much.
Courtney Sheehan is an 8.5-year Marine Corps veteran and former small business owner. She's running for the Riverside County Board of Supervisors in the 3rd District and is the only middle-class parent in her race. She's been endorsed by the Riverside County National Organization for Women, Temecula Valley Democrats, candidate Kate Schwartz, progressive veterans of Riverside County, Umbrella PAC, and 4 private individuals. Courtney's campaign is focused on creating well-paying local jobs, traffic congestion relief through public transportation, and affordable housing for all, among other priorities. She is currently married with 1 child. Please welcome Courtney.
Hey, before I get started on my spiel, can we get a round for Becky for this incredible spread back here? Thank you so much. We all know, those of us who have done an event, that it's the food that makes the event. I can come up here and talk garbage all day long, but if the food's good, then it's a done deal. So thank you very much for doing that. Well, sometimes. I haven't gotten to the wine yet. I will get to the wine though and talk garbage all night. Anyway, so I am running, Edison and I are both running in the same race, which you may have picked up on, District 3 for supervisor. We agree on a lot of fundamental issues, namely the fact that we need to get rid of the current representation, which is not really representation, I use that term loosely, and replace it with people who care, because we don't have anybody who cares in most of our offices these days. And that's not just the county supervisor level. That's our city councils. I can tell you stories that make your hair start to burn about our city councils. And I can tell you stories about how inefficient our delivery of services are at the county level for our agencies. In fact, I was just up at Riverside, in the city of Riverside, and I found out that the county hospital in Hemet is doing a homeless outreach program, okay? So on its face, it looks fantastic, right? Homeless outreach, we have a homeless problem, let's connect the two, and more money, okay? So their whole plan for this homeless outreach is to have these seminars in the hospital for the homeless. So immediately I said to myself, okay, so how are the homeless gonna find out about the seminars? Because they don't have a phone, they don't have an email, because they don't have a home. And then I thought, how are these individuals gonna get to the hospital? They can't call an Uber. They're not gonna get there, even if they did know about it. But what I see in the delivery of our county services is that there's a lot that happens that's for show. It's on paper that there was a meeting that was held, there was a check in the box, somebody did something like provide these seminars, these series of 3 seminars, and we can all go home, everyone goes home happy, like somebody did something. And unfortunately, that's not gonna fly anymore, because we are waking up as residents of Riverside County and demanding more oversight and demanding people actually do their jobs for their exorbitant salaries. 2 of our supervisors get paid $3,000 less than United States senators do. That's a lot of money in a county where the median income is about $60,000, okay? And they've taken those pay increases every year they've had them. They haven't turned them down, which is interesting. So I'm running because, as most of us are frequently in Temecula, I was stuck in traffic one day, and I looked out my window. It was a rainy day last November, and there was an unfortunate homeless individual outside. He had a cardboard over his head, and I've lived in Temecula for about 5 years now. And we settled here, my husband and I settled here after we had decided, well, he wasn't gonna move to Minnesota where I'm from, and I certainly wasn't gonna move to Southeast Virginia where he's from. So we said, okay, we're here, it's beautiful, there's no snow, few racists, we're gonna be fine. So it was the middle of the road. And we bought a home here. I say few. Loose interpretation. I love the area, but we do have our special individuals. So we bought a home here, and I've lived here for 5 years, driving around, and I thought, nothing's getting better. In fact, everything is getting worse. The traffic's getting worse. My husband can't find a job. He's got a bachelor's degree. He's gonna go work for $12.50 in retail if he wants to stay in Temecula. I have a bachelor's degree, same thing. And like Dr. O'Mara said, we've got people with graduate degrees going and living in their cars because they can't afford to live here. And then I really just dug into it and did some research and tried to figure out who would handle these problems. And it all boiled back to the Board of Supervisors for a lot of our problems. I have been in touch with our local electeds in the Temecula City Council, and that's interesting. Because they'll tell you, oh, those problems are solved by the county. Go talk to the county. And then I'll go talk to the county, and the county will say, no. The cities handle those problems. Go talk to the city. So overall, if there's one takeaway that you get from my spiel tonight, it's that not only does the 3rd District need to get a complete wash, the 4th district, the 5th district, whatever, every single district of county supervisors, it's the city councils, it's everything. Because we need to provide representation for people who live here and who want to address the problems that we actually have, which have been heartily enumerated by everyone here. I agree with 100%, I'm not gonna take my time to rehash what they've said. Affordable housing, public transportation, local jobs, huge issues, 100%. And I'm just asking for everyone to stop and consider what we're actually doing here. We expect our elected officials to address these issues, and they're failing to do so. So let's replace them. And I'm Courtney Sheehan, running for the Board of Supervisors, 3rd District. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Becky. Appreciate it.
If you should note, we do have another individual on here. Melissa Bourbonnais works for the Riverside County Sheriff's Department as a correctional deputy and as an adjunct instructor in political science at California State University, Fullerton. And she is your endorsed candidate for Riverside County Supervisor District 1. Her professional and personal background gives her a real-life understanding of the issues and effective problem-solving skills. She is unfortunately unable to be here this evening due to a prior commitment, but we do have a short video that she made for all of us to view.
Or do you need it?
Running for Riverside County Board of Supervisors, District 1. I wish I could be there with you tonight. Unfortunately, I have a prior commitment, but I am nonetheless excited about this opportunity to share with you briefly my qualifications and why I'm running for supervisor. I've lived and worked in Riverside County for 25 years. I understand the issues affecting us on a multitude of levels. I'm running for supervisor because I want to tackle these problems and better my quality of life and yours too. The good thing is I have both a heart and professional background to do it. To begin with, I have a master's degree in political science and have taught American government courses for more than a decade at Cal State Fullerton and Riverside Community College. So I have a strong knowledge base about how government operates. I also work as a correctional deputy for the Sheriff's Department. This has given me a real understanding of one of the most pressing issues affecting Riverside today, homelessness. I understand the importance of local law enforcement, and I also understand the critical need for mental health professionals and other public service providers to be part of a collective effort necessary to resolve this serious problem. Also, I'm from a family of small business owners. My parents own a small ambulance company in Irwindale, and my mother and father-in-law own a small printing business in Riverside on the corner of Magnolia and Van Buren for about 25 years. I am familiar with the challenges of small business owners and the way their businesses are often negatively impacted by the decisions of local government. My top 3 priorities include, number 1, to build a thriving local job market. The Board of Supervisors is well known for being pro-development, with little regard for the way its development affects street traffic, local jobs, pollution, and any number of important peripheral issues that development directly impacts. I have teamed up with a coalition of small business owners, educators, and community leaders to ensure that my plan to attract quality jobs and build a thriving job market will be successful. This will create opportunities for residents to both live and work in Riverside County, which means less time on the road commuting to work and more quality time with friends and family. Number 2, to tackle homelessness. This requires a multifaceted approach, which includes a task force of public service providers and a commitment to affordable housing. The truth is, these issues, such as homelessness, affects everyone. Whether your heart goes out to the homeless and you see it as a humanitarian issue, or you are a small business owner and see it more pragmatically, homelessness adversely impacts us all. Number 3, to support fire and public safety services. which protects communities and improves quality of life. The common thread to these issues is irresponsible development. Since the early 2000s, Riverside County has seen exponential growth in development, but without prioritizing the infrastructure to accommodate this growth. Local government has taken a predominantly singular view with its development decisions and failed to ensure that this growth included an infrastructure to handle the growing population, as well as a sustainable job market to offer the influx of new communities. The problems facing the county are interconnected, and solutions require both a comprehensive approach and a team mentality. My diverse spectrum of professional experience, coupled with my heartfelt passion for public service, makes me the most qualified candidate in my race to do this. I will look out for the best interest of hardworking families and work to build a more successful Riverside County. Feel free to learn more about my qualifications and platform at votemelissa.com. Please vote for me this Tuesday, March 3rd. Thank you.
Wow, candidates, it is very encouraging and inspiring to hear each of you talking about your policies and priorities and why they matter to us, to you, and to everyone here. We are now going to open it up to a question and answer session. Audience members, you may ask individual candidates, a combination of candidates, or ask for the whole panel to address your question. Please keep your questions fair and respectful, as everyone's time here is valuable. Candidates, if you are answering the questions, please keep your answers between 1 and 2 minutes. Skylar again will let you know when you have about 30 seconds left. Audience, please raise your hand if you have a question, and we will share this mic here. Our candidates. Do you want to pass? Perfect. Okay, perfect. If you wouldn't mind, if you have a question, to please come line up right over here.
Okay, hi, so I have a question for the panel. I don't know if this thing works, so it's pretty loud. Listen, I'm used to not having that. So my question is to the panel. I'll start with the story. So I have a friend. So his job gave him an option. It was, we'll give you a severance package of about 3 months, or you pick a significant pay cut. He has a wife, 3 kids, and 2 fur babies. And he has to drive a fairly long distance to work every day. You know, we've heard, you know, regardless of the seat, housing costs and local jobs. I was hanging out with his family the other day, and he can only afford to put $5 of gas in his car, or like they wouldn't have dinner that night. So what are your proposals to fixing this issue? For the panel.
Thank you. Would someone like to start?
A lot of things. So it doesn't come just down to affordable housing, but it's bringing more economic opportunities into the region. Right now, you know, the average pay does not equal how much it is to, you know, own a home or rent a place. I want to bring into the 71st Assembly District biotech jobs. So in Sorrento Valley, there are a lot of biotech companies, but a lot of the employees of biotech companies actually live in East County. So if we bring satellite stations to East County, it will lower their commute times and bring better economic opportunities to our residents in East County. Also, we can build more jobs and good paying jobs with renewable energy. We can be the leaders in the state and in the nation for renewable energy. And renewable energy actually requires more manpower than the fossil fuel industry. So we'll be creating more jobs, and we can do job training and placement for those who would be displaced from the fossil fuel industry as well. And we can do that by taking away the subsidies and taking that money to train those people. So better economic opportunities, number 1. Number 2, affordable housing. And then everything else that we're gonna talk about tonight all falls into that category because everybody's struggling. I look at my bank account daily too. I'm like, what should we do today? Should we put gas in the car? Should I pay for the kids' school lunches? Like, what are we gonna do? So I understand, because I live it daily too. I understand what your friend's going through.
Most of my family members have actually moved out of state for this very reason. And part of my platform is let's keep California families here in California. So creation of affordable housing is a major component to this solution. And that's going to involve denser housing. It's also going to involve increased transportation options that are going to be less costly than maintaining a vehicle and using that vehicle for commuting daily. And as well as there's some new thinking about working at home and telecommuting, and how that saves not only on greenhouse gas emissions, it really helps our climate, it helps our traffic congestion, and it helps families and working commuters. So that is something that the state needs to look at more closely. They really have pushed that aside when they were considering some of their transportation infrastructure changes, but that's an option that we can begin encouraging employers to use immediately. We also need, I think, greater funding coming down our way for vocational training. I don't know what occupation your friend is in, and I don't know what his options are, but certainly we need to update our technology, and as Liz was saying, along with that is increased job training for the new green technologies. That, along with putting our funds toward developers who are going to create affordable housing for us only. That is probably not going to be single-family homes. It's going to be more dense housing, and it's going to be closer to new transportation infrastructure that we need. Thank you.
So he's a estimator, auto insurance estimator for.
Okay, so the point that I'll make on this is that wage growth used to match productivity growth. So as our time invested is worth more, we used to get paid more, which means in the long run, we would be working less hours and making much more money. We broke that system 40 years ago, and the problem is entirely in the tax code. The incentives were changed. With the incentives set where they are, the businesses do not want to give us that money because they don't have to anymore. They can keep it for themselves. They can ship it up to the Cayman Islands. They can give themselves fantastically large compensation packages. That's our choice, right? If we put the tax incentives back where they were, the wages will start climbing again, and we would all see significant increases in what we're making here. We're fighting now to get a $15 minimum wage. If you actually looked at productivity changes over the last 40 years here, the minimum wage should be in the 30s, right? In order to actually match our expenses here, we have to start fixing the tax code.
And wage stagnation, and that's what you were talking about, it does not go along with the profits that are being made by major corporations, and the fact that they are in places where they don't have to pay their fair share of taxes, and we have to change that. And also that infrastructure, and this is something that Liz and Kate were both talking about. Infrastructure has to include the ability to get onto the internet, to the ability, because in many, many areas, even in places where education is taking place, people can't even get onto the net. How are they going to compete for any jobs? How are they even going to reach those jobs? We can do that. There's all kinds of jobs that are available like that. But if you're going to have clean water, clean food, and clean air, there's plenty of technological jobs for that. And today in Sweden, they have stripes that they paint on the street. That is how they recharge their electric cars and their public transportation already. These technologies already exist. There is no reason why we have to be on the fossil fuels. We have to move away from non-sustainable fossil fuels and get where the rest of the world is. And one more thing before I give up this microphone. 42% of the products in the world are made in China. They're not being made right now. When you look at a company like Chirp, who actually produces solar panels, and they take old warehouses and make them into factories, and it's a non-profit factory, and they are putting out solar panels that are 52% more efficient than the ones we bought from China. There's a hell of a lot we could be doing right now, but it's going to take somebody who's not afraid to stand up for the Californians and for Riverside County. I hope you see that I'm that person.
And we have
Right, so first of all, I'm really sorry that that's happening, because it's one of the unfortunate things of running for office. is you get to hear everybody's problems, and sometimes you don't have the solution because the solution doesn't come in one thing for several things. And yes, I believe affordable housing is necessary. It's incredibly necessary. We're long overdue for it. But then again, affordable housing means nothing when you have $5 in your pocket. You can't buy a house with $5 for gas. I'm an educator, so I believe it starts at the bottom. I believe you have to start by training people. I agree with Kate in the sense that we need more trade job training. I have a bachelor's degree and I make $22 an hour, versus if I would have went to trade school in high school, I could be making $40 to $60 an hour as a welder. So, and again, it's not something that you can be fixed right now, but again, I favor trade job training, increased becoming a more transit-oriented community, expanding our public transport just so people don't have to choose between $5 in their car and this. It's you can get there. And again, internet, all these things. In Anza, I've been canvassing on a dirt bike, you know, and some people live out in the boonies and they don't have a way to get to the city centers. They don't have a job out there. They don't have training programs. So it's a slew of things that really just, it's the mess we're in right now. We have to start fixing it step by step. I believe in fixing it through education and preparing future generations so they don't have to face that.
Okay, so I really want to zero in on what I could do as a supervisor if I had your friend sitting in front of me and talk about that. And it comes down to the abstract concepts of housing affordability and the job market and everything. But if I have somebody sitting in front of me who has $5 to put in their gas tank and it's a family of 5 and they're a single income family and they've lost that income, my immediate thought is, how can I stop this family from becoming a family of 5 living in their car? What am I going to do to make sure that this family does not become homeless? And it's very difficult to climb. It's very easy to slide into homelessness, but it's very difficult to climb out of it. So it's delivery of services, which I touched on in my introductory speech, and getting those services to the people that need them, when they need them, easily, accessibly, because we have emergency programs. We have WIC, we have TANF, we have all of these other programs that are available to individuals that they could utilize in an emergency situation as a stopgap, that are federal, and we have county and state level as well. But we need to make sure that those services are being broadcast and messaged and available, and they're not. You know, a lot of agencies, they couldn't, I don't think, could bear the brunt of the populace at large actually utilizing some of these services if they knew about them. So part of my plan to address issues like what your friend is going through is making sure that I'm setting up local stations and local offices that provide information about economic development, about workforce restructuring, workforce development, emergency stopgap economic services for people who are on the line, they're still working or they just lost their job, and then they need to collect unemployment or whatever the case may be, so that we can prevent families from going from your average run-of-the-mill, just you to same as you and me family, to a family that is homeless and living in their car. So that's what I would focus on if I had your friend sitting in front of me when I am elected as a county supervisor. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
One of the things that you get when you get old like me, you learn a whole lot, hopefully, and you remember it, which is even harder. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, starting in 1980. And I don't hear a whole lot of start your own business. I talk to a lot of young people all the time. I do programs at universities and middle schools and high schools at times. And people are talking about, well, how can I get hired? Well, can you hire me? Is your business? And I really think sometimes, you know, you really think a lot of yourself. Is that a bad thing? No, not necessarily. If you think you're that great, then maybe you should hire yourself. There are a number of things out there that your friend could do, and a lot of other people could do with just a 10th grade education and make an incredible income doing. It's possible. That is what's great about this country and this state and even this area. It can be done. You want to ask, well, what can you do, whatever? My mom is in a care home. My mother-in-law is in a care home. I saw my mom yesterday. My wife saw her mom today. In care homes, usually about $10,000 to $20,000 in income per home per month. And most of the owners of these homes that I know don't have college degrees. They've got a couple homes. That's just one example of something. There are plenty of other things to do. So when we talk about things being more affordable, I'd really like to see it being, let's get everybody able to make more money.
Thank you, candidates. Do we have another question?
My question is specifically for you, Mr. Carlos. When I received my ballot information packet, yours was actually the only one for Assembly District 67 that I did not see. First, if that's a mistake, then I'm sorry. But I then proceeded to look you up online. I could not find anything at all. And I don't mean to sound like I'm attacking you, but then you yielded a minute and 30 seconds in your introduction, which was mildly worrying. I learned about this event from Mr. O'Mara, but I came to see you because currently I have Steve Manos bubbled in on my vote for mail ballot, but I wanted to be able to vote for the Democrat. I'm a left-leaning independent. I was wondering if you would be able to explain what your most important policy position would be to hopefully have me change my mind.
I lived in this area, as you heard me say before, since 1999. This Southwest Riverside County. I've worked, in fact, I'm going to be the only one, I imagine, in this room that has put handcuffs on homeless people that have their bodies covered with feces and all kinds of other things. I'm the chairman of the City of Lake Elsinore's Public Safety Advisory Commission. Our main committee is the homeless. And when we talk about homeless, we have so many issues going on there. But one of the things, just one of the things, is that we get a report to my commission all the time. We had 217 contacts. Out of the 217 contacts, 27 of those people wanted help. Only 27 wanted help. And that included mothers or just people that were, let's just say unconscious. We had another time we went out, we contacted 16 people. Of the 16 people, 2 of them wanted help. And what was really interesting is the following day when we did the follow-up, and help simply means we are telling them, we can get you a roof today. We can have it for you tomorrow. We can get you the food that you need. So we go in, talk to 16 people, 2 say they want help, and the following day one goes, well, I really don't want the help anymore. We really are, as someone said, we're spending a lot of money on this stuff. And some of it isn't government's issue in a way. We've got to there's so much work that needs to be done. That's more of a mental thing than anything else. We need to have the mental health problems coming back. Mental health problems. We need to have the mental health infrastructure back as we had before. So that's only one thing that I don't know what more you were asking in that way. The ballot statement is $3,500 to put out. That's one reason I'm the only candidate that didn't have that. The other candidates had a lot more money than I do, as they still would right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Do we have any other questions?
Hi there. My question was specifically for Mr. Carlos and Dr. O'Mara, but I would like to hear from all of the panelists. This has quickly become much more conservative of an area than it was when I was younger. What are your campaign strategies to deal with that? Are you trying to reach out to moderates and Republicans? Are you trying to reach out to people who normally don't vote? What is your plan to get where we need to be to make this county function the way it should?
Okay, first is, the data is pretty consistent on this. Over a 30-year period, populists are our swing voters. Chasing after conservatives as a Democrat, chasing to the right does not work. If you have a choice between Republican and Republican light, people usually choose the Republican. It has failed over and over and over as an electoral strategy, and it's time we abandon it. There are far larger numbers of people who feel disaffected, who are tuned out from the political system, who feel that no one is listening to them, than there are people that you could possibly sway on the right to your side. So my strategy is first off to go for the disaffected voters, the people who feel that the working class voters, Hispanic voters, young voters who feel that there's no politician who could possibly talk to them, that they don't relate to them. And second, it is to actually reach out on a populist level. You know, Trump won the 42nd district by 12 points. It is impossible for a Democrat to win without picking up some of those voters, right? But not all the people who voted for Trump on the whole racist, nationalist, all that kind of stuff. Some people were listening to him saying, you know what, I'm gonna bring jobs back. I'm gonna open up those factories, right? They heard that and said, you know what, someone's talking about an issue that makes sense to me. And you know, most voters are never gonna pay attention to the details of policy. Trump is clearly not making this any better. But they heard someone speaking about an issue that mattered to them. So the way to win is to talk about those issues. So I am talking about working class issues to people and trying to sway those voters back to me.
By the way, I wanted to add one thing more on the money. Well, the person I look at as my main opponent has a retirement income from the PERS system in the state of California for about $175,000. If he were to win this campaign, he'll be getting state checks for over $300,000 a year. So he'll easily be able to afford a $3,500 campaign statement, ballot statement each year. Liam is totally right in what he's saying. The biggest hurdle I've got is a 9% or so advantage in Republican registrations in this area. How do we overcome that? It's probably going to be reaching out and looking at some of these people and going, you know, I kind of agree with you on that. I don't agree that we should have tons of freebies. I don't agree that people should be able to commit crimes and have those sentences less than what they used to be. If you wanted to ask me later on why I don't necessarily believe in erasing criminal records, take the time to do that with me later on. There's really good reasons not to be doing that. So there are a lot of things to find in common with that other side. There are a lot of things not to find in common. The person that has a seat right now that I'd like to have, her biggest thing was we need to call out the National Guard and have them at the border. That was her first big main campaign thing. So there are huge differences, true, but try and work on the similarities. I think we can really get something done that way.
First of all, it's a fantastic question. I grapple with that because in the supervisorial race, there are 5 districts in the county. 4 of them actually have a majority of Democratic voter registrations. They range from 9,000 majority Democrats in one district to 20 to 30,000 majority Democrats in another district. However, the representation of the board is 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 1 Libertarian, which is just all it's going to tell you is it's a complete lame duck. Nothing's going to happen because there's going to be no consensus and there's no coalition. So before, I have a lot of strategy for that. I don't want to steal Elizabeth Warren's thing, but I have a plan for that. So before the voter registration period ended, so before February 17th, I knocked every single door. And I gave my information to every single person, whether they were registered to vote or not. I went to the Promenade Mall in Temecula. I registered people to vote. I ran an expansionist campaign, and I created my own voters. And if I seem angry tonight, it's because I am, because I'm fed up. I'm a mother who has decided to jump into a political race. I am not a career politician, but I am fed up. So before the registration hit, that's what I was doing. Everybody and anybody, because we all face the same issues. We all have to deal with traffic. We all have to deal with the lack of local jobs. It doesn't matter what party registration you are when you need fire and emergency services. That doesn't matter. That's the bread and butter of local government. It's balancing the budget. There's a fly. I think I ate it. It's balancing the budget. It's making sure that we're taking care of our nickels and dimes and focusing on pocketbook issues. And that's what we need to focus on as local government administrators. After that, I've been engaging typical primary voters who voted in the last couple of primaries. But after the primary, I'm going to disrupt the market and innovate using different strategies when I was a small business owner in the marketing field. I'm going to set up a booth at one of the kiosks at almost every single mall in my district daily year-round until November, and I'm going to register voters, and I'm going to explain to them why these issues matter. I'm going to explain to them why the school board matters. I'm going to explain to them why their city council matters. I'm going to explain to them what these positions do for them and how they touch their everyday life, so that I can energize and electrify the electorate to actually care and vote in local elections, because that's really where my passion is. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Sorry, Skylar. I'm sorry.
So personally, I think the political polarization of this country is one of the worst things that's happened. I'm not even going to blame it all on Donald Trump. The left is also culpable of being extreme on occasions. In this particular district, and that disdain for that whole system, I think, has helped me reach out to Republican and Democratic voters. One of my best friends voted for Donald Trump. He didn't vote for him because he's a racist, nationalist, whatever. He voted because he wanted a hand grenade, because he was fed up with the system. He just wanted something different, and sometimes we fail to offer that something different. I believe my platform has actually managed to connect with a lot of these people. I had a conversation today with a man who said he's a little on the liberal side, but he's talking about my issues. And I talk about cannabis a lot, and it's one of those weird things. It's a hot topic, and honestly, it encompasses both sides of the aisle. On one side, you have Democrats who want to legalize all drugs and expunge criminal records, which we should for cannabis crimes. And on the other side, you have Republicans who talk about states' rights and the right to farm, and traditionally, they've been standing up for the farmer more. So when you find these issues that can actually start to bridge this gap, I think it's less so about messaging, it's more about connecting with people on real issues and having real politicians just standing in front of you, talking to you. I mean, I can connect with anybody in this room if you want. If you have 15 minutes, let's do it. And I can do it with a dude out on 5 acres. Like, we've been dirt bike canvassing until then. We're meeting all sorts of people, and people just, again, they have real issues that go beyond our BS political affiliation.
Pass it down, George.
Yeah.
Within my district, Assembly District 75, the figures are about 37-some-odd% Republican, 28 Democrat, and 28 NPP. So yes, it is certainly a challenge. And I would very much agree with Liam that my strategy is to really approach all of the voters. We're all in this together, and let's take a look at the issues. I've been getting out into the media, plenty of newspaper, electronic, online newspaper articles, and that will be increasing, of course, once we're past the primary. But I'm hoping that the voters are going to take notice of the issues and that they impact them, because they impact all of us together, regardless of whether you're Democrat, Republican, or NPP. And I think they will take notice that my opposition, they really don't see her anywhere. She is not visible. I've never actually seen her within our assembly district. I've only seen her on television sitting in the assembly. And they're going to, I hope, experience a difference between us. And that difference being that there is someone right out here in the community talking to everyone about the issues that matter to you most, about your quality of life, and about potential solutions that we're going to work toward. And then we have a very silent representative in Sacramento, and I think that is going to speak so many volumes to people. I certainly hope so.
In Senate District 28, you have a third. At this point in time, the Democratic registration has gone up. So you have a third Republican, and a third non-party preference. That's a big change. After the last election of 2018, which I almost won by 3 points, and from that point they thought I was an unknown. Boy, we scared the crap out of them. Yeah. But here's what happens. Here's what happened. I analyzed and I looked for where were those votes that we could get. And I will tell you that 54,000 registered Democrats, never mind the left-leaning independents, or never mind, 54,000 Democrats did not vote. And out of that number, 24,000 of them had ballots in their house. And they didn't put the ballot in the mail. We could have had a landslide had just the registered Democrats vote. Well, I went to all the Democrat clubs and told them about that. I went everywhere, and I had three different analyses to prove where those cities were. And today, precincts were developed, registration was developed. We went out there to do this. And I will tell you this too. You cannot change a cult follower's mind. You cannot. If you're going to spend your time reaching across that aisle doesn't exist. Okay? Because they're living on an aisle all by themselves. But there are more of us than there are of them. Because conservatives, independents, moderates, and progressives, they want the same things. They want clean air, clean water, clean food, education, and good jobs. They want to crack down on corruption. They want homes for the homeless veterans. They want to see that happen. They want more opportunities to build a middle class. And when you talk about those things and you reach people on that level, they do not want that federal disaster that calls himself president to be dictating to them what should happen in California.
You know, so like,
Thank you, candidates. Do we have another question? Yes.
Good evening. Is it on?
A little closer, please.
Really? Okay. Good evening, and thank you all for being here. Imagine that. Hopefully elected officials talking to their hopefully future constituents. As an educator of 19 years, 6 years in LA inner city school, 1 year at a public charter school in San Diego, and 12 of them at a local high school. I have a question about education. When I worked in LA, we were swimming in funding. However, here in Temecula, and I imagine it's similar in Murrieta, we do not get as much funds as schools in other high needs locales. I know that these high schools need funds, but so do we. We need funds to support SPED students, to support socio-emotional learning, and to deal with the current scary drug problem our students are facing, let alone just the day-to-day act of educating these students and fostering future voters. What are your plans to positively affect the education system in the area by supporting its students and teachers?
I love that question. Teachers for Change. Who would like to take this one first?
All right, cool. Thank you very much for that question. And yes, a while ago I quoted Dr. King, and I'm going to do it again, not exactly because I want to butcher his words, but he mentioned that a budget is a moral document. It shows where you want to allocate funds. It shows what you prioritize. Riverside County currently has 1% of its $6.4 billion budget allocated to education. 1%, okay? That is ridiculous. Yet we, this year, we cut funding to animal service, not increasing mental health services. The sheriff bought himself a $15 million helicopter. I don't know much about helicopters, but we could probably buy a $10 million one and maybe send 5 million of those towards education.
Or the 6 we already have.
Again, so yeah. So the point is, we're not prioritizing education, and my simple solution is increased funding to education. That's going to be one of my priorities as an educator. I again, all of my solutions, sometimes I feel bad because my solutions can't immediately help people's problems. Solution starts with pre-K education, with after-school programs for rural communities, for trade job training. So if you don't want to go to college, you can still get a really good job, and you're worth what you're truly. I mean, you're valued at what you're truly worth in the job market. And to me, that's a solution. It's just we have to prioritize it, and there is no question about it.
Okay, so I can hit this on a federal and a state level that will actually affect you and more. So first, a comment on more the federal level. We have been cutting, or actually it affects a lot of states too. We've been cutting tons of spending all across the country in tons of different ways here. And the federal government used to be able to subsidize a lot of the public education here for universities and whatnot, but instead it's shifted over to loans. So now they give massive amounts of loans to people instead of simply funding. A lot of our public universities used to be tuition free. There's no reason that they shouldn't be again because the money is actually there. They just instead hand it out in loans to people so that the students end up staying in debt, right? And the schools still get what they want. So the system is it's broken, right? And that was a deliberate policy choice. On the local level, I agree with Edison. It's a matter of priorities. You know, we have plenty of money to do this. We're just choosing not to spend it in the right areas. There are two areas that will always increase the amount of spending that you have as the population goes up: healthcare and education. There's tons of other areas that costs will go down over time as productivity increases. But healthcare and education always need people, which means you have to continually add money to the system as the populations go. How many schools have those temporary buildings that just never go away because we refuse to spend the money? How often do we pass bond measures to support things and just take on debt? Why not just actually spend the money? So one issue there for me, it gets back to the question of productivity, right? The productivity has been going up. Why not just tax some of the robots, right? And actually bring in some of the money that's generally being generated in this economy. We have the wealth to do it. We're simply not using it for social purposes. Again, echoing Edison's point.
I want to agree with Edison. California currently is 41st in the nation in terms of per pupil spending. That is the problem. And I worked for years actually coordinating mental health programs within school districts. So I certainly feel you in terms of SPED and the need for increased services in the schools. I support the California tax on commercial and industrial property for education and local government use. And that's also called the split roll tax. Within that particular tax, schools and communities first would receive income that would be supplemental income for the schools. It would not replace the state funding guarantee. So there would be an estimated increase in funding for the schools of 6.5 to 10 billion annually within our state. We certainly can use that funding to improve our teacher salaries, to improve our facilities, our programming, provide additional services that are needed within our schools. The funding would not be distributed to the general fund, but to specific geographical areas. So we would not be losing funding and simply sending it over to the general fund for the state. It would actually come back to our communities. Let's see. I won't comment on that right now, but I will say that I think we all agree that a well-educated workforce is essential to California's future, and it's a very wise investment to go with schools and communities first.
The money that we've raised and earmarked for education, we need to make sure is going to education. I mean, they did an audit of the library recently, and we found out that they shorted the school $60 million plus. That's an issue. When we created an education budget, we created it as a baseline. That was our baseline budget, and we were supposed to, that's the bare minimum basic of our education, and we were supposed to grow and expand that budget. Well, that became the ceiling, and nothing's ever happened there. So our baseline budget has been our ceiling for decades, and that needs to stop. We need to, I support schools and communities first too. We need to get more funding into the schools. We need the teacher to student ratio to go down so that education in the classroom can actually be education. And we need the counselor to student ratio to go down. There are not enough counselors in our schools either. How are we guiding our children to make big life decisions about what they want to do in their life? And with the emotional, the online and the Facebook and this and the that, and I mean, it's all of like the social learning too that we're missing out on, what our students are missing out. So we need to, make sure that the funding that has been earmarked for education doesn't get seconded off, and put more there. And yes, give the teachers a raise, give them a livable wage. Could they stop coming out of the pocket because they need crayons or they need glue or they need this or that? Like that are the basics of school, and we had that when we grew up, and our kids today deserve that too. And bring back the music, bring back the arts, bring back places where kids can express themselves in healthy ways.
So let's say it, let's say those words, Prop 13. Okay, let's talk about when it was passed in 1978 as a way to protect seniors on fixed income from skyrocketing inflation. It capped property taxes at their 1976 assessment at 1% and restricted annual increases to 2% as long as that property wasn't sold. But it applied equally to those who make money from their land, including real estate, residential and commercial, owned by individuals and corporations. It doesn't make any sense that corporations would be paying so little for the land they occupy. Year after year, those core services that education relies on, they're not getting that money. The anticipated ballot measures, the California Schools and Local Community Funding Act, they're talking about splitting the rolls for commercial properties over the $3 million mark. while leaving caps in place for homeowners. And that means that proponents, teachers, labor, health and social services, this could be up to $12 billion that should be going into education. And one more thing, those early educators, they don't even make as much as the teachers in regular public school. Why? Maybe some of those representatives should make less money, and we should look at the money where it really counts. Because those kids in early education are going to determine what the future looks like. And maybe those kids, they're not working for the future, these kids. They're hoping they're going to have a future. So it's up to us to guarantee that future and make sure they get a good start. As a teacher once said to me, I could teach my subject to 200 kids in a room. But the problem is, that's not all I do as a teacher. So we have to make sure that those teachers and all teachers have support, especially for the special ed kids that are now put in the same classes. We have to make sure that they get the services they need and that the teachers get the support they need. And one last thing, the violence that teachers are dealing with in classrooms. The dirty little secret that it's not just kids that are having bullying, but so are the teachers. So we're going to have to make sure that those classes are small and make sure that those kids in the early education are acclimated to what it means to be in society, because some of those kids are going home to homes which are much worse than what they're dealing with right now. And you, as a teacher, have to deal with the repercussions of what that home life looks like. We've got to support those kids, and we've got to make that our priority.
So I have a kid in public school. She goes to Vintage Hills. She's in kindergarten. And it really opened my eyes to the California school system. We have a lot of issues with funding here. And it really comes down to what Elizabeth said partially with making sure that we're auditing and directing the money where it belongs. All of our land trust money that was granted to us from the federal government like 100 or 150 years ago is actually going into the Retired Teachers Fund. And that was supposed to be earmarked for current students and for education. So that money is it's not doing anything for current students right now. It's paying off the pensions that were put in place 20 years ago. On top of that, when we want to talk about Prop 13, Prop 13 is listed by multiple different academic research white papers as one of the leading factors as to why land is so expensive here. So those of us who are in the audience who are development hogs like myself and want to talk about development and sustainable development and economic development and affordable housing, we can't even talk about that when we're talking about $1 million tract of land. So Prop 13, we really need to address Prop 13. But we also need to take a look and make sure that we have accountability over those funds. Because when we talk about 40% going to the school district, because that's the slice of everything said and done, 40% is going to go to our schools, okay? We need to make sure that that's going to the operational level of our school district. There is no reason why we should be seeing that 40% continuing to pad assistant superintendent and superintendent salaries.
Exactly.
Because I have a superintendent in my district that's making almost $300,000 a year. For a salary alone. That's aside of his one-time bonuses, that's aside of his stipends, that's aside of his benefits and retirement. And that is the case that in the Hemet School District, we're talking still 6 digits for superintendent and assistant superintendent salaries, and the average income in Hemet is $19,000. So we need to make sure that we are keeping accountability of these monies that are sent to our schools for direct use of the students, and that's what I intend to do. I'm an audit Nazi, well, no, Nazi, but I'm an audit fiend. I don't have a red hat on. I'm an audit fiend, and I want to sit down and I want to take a look at the line items in the budget to make sure that it's going where it needs to go. Does that answer your question?
I don't simply want to say ditto to what Courtney said, but that's really very much what I feel also. My first public school check was in 1965. My last one was 2015. My wife worked as a public elementary school teacher for 40 years. I worked for 3 high school districts, 1 community college district, and the University of California. And especially at UC, there are all kinds of departments. I mean, look through their book of departments, and there's always a head of that department. There are administrative assistants to the head of that department, and there will be clerical people for those departments as well. And you're looking and going, I've never heard of anything like that. it's 125,000. The assistant will get 95,000. It really is something to look at what money we are spending. So really, our job for the state level is to protect that funding that's supposed to be used for public schools. At the local level, for our city councils and even our supervisors, other than the county district that you have, it's to look at public safety for the community. That's the first primary purpose of government, especially on the local level, your police and fire. The federal government is looking more at military and protecting the whole country as a whole. In the state, for what we've done with laws now, the money comes from the state, and that's what we have to be looking at, is how we're spending it through the state.
While you're handing the mic, I just want to tell you guys that Prop 13, Schools and Communities First, will bring $16 million a year into Temecula Valley Unified School District.
I just want to talk about education, and like Joe was talking about education. I have 2 granddaughters that are teachers, and they definitely are underpaid, just like nurses are. But what upsets me so much with the system is regardless how good your teachers are and what they do to teach them and the right from wrong and all that. But when they go home, the parents, they work against them. My youngest granddaughter, this is her first year, she's teaching. She's had a very rough year that first 6 months, but things are getting better. But if you don't have parents that are gonna work with the teachers, I mean, it's terrible, and I don't know what you all will do, but they should have meetings once a month or every 2 or 3 months with the parents. They should get together with the parents, because the parents have a lot to do with their children, and I think it's disgraceful.
Thank you. It takes many stakeholders, correct? We have another question.
This question is for Courtney and Edison if he wants to respond. My name is Jacob Baird. I'm Vice President of the High Country Growers Association. And as you may know, there's an estimated 2,000 estimated illegal cannabis farms in the Anse Valley alone, not to mention all over the rest of the county. The current regulatory framework that they came up with, they were going to allow 50 licenses for cultivation, 37 were received, 17 went to the next step, and there's only 1 going on to the next step to potentially be approved. So my question is, what would be your strategy to work with the other supervisors and our bigoted Sheriff Bianco that has been quoted in saying that THC has no medical value and it was all just a ruse to become legal? What would be your strategy in working with those types of people to make a tax benefit for the county rather than spending millions of dollars in eradication?
Directly towards Edison first, and then we'll pass to the right, please.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, so obviously I've been involved with the cannabis farmers for a while now. And the first thing that needs to be done is lower the barriers to entry for small farmers, and for all cultivars, really. It's ridiculous how we treat our farmers nowadays. But it's been proven that legalization and regulation is the best way forward, and it actually reduces crime in these areas. So I believe that a low barrier to entry, low licensing fees, so people can enter the legal framework first, because we've demonized the industry for so long, and they try to figure out, they talk about cartels, which there's no proof of actual cartel involvement in Riverside County. It's actually a racist trope to push out the Mexican farmer who are just born in the US, born in California, but they love saying Mexicans, weed, cartel. Not true. There is no evidence of that happening. So what we need to do is bring all these farmers into the light. Okay, that way we remove the environmental protection issue, because if they're regulated, you have people checking out their farms. And yes, they have found carbofuran at certain farms, and as I mentioned before, how many legal farms have they found harmful pesticides in? 0. But it's the fact that they're still out in the dark, they're still pushed out, we're not creating jobs, and that's basically what we have to do. Let them in, tax them reasonably, because again, California has dropped the ball by overtaxing the industry, and now it's more profitable to be in the black market than being in the regulated market. So it's just stupid. So we've overtaxed them at a state level, and now we want to overtax them at a local level. It's impossible to get in. Regulate, and you remove the nuisance.
So to answer your question about working with these individuals who may have contradictory views or may be difficult in principle to work with, I believe in political pragmatism. I really don't care how we skin the cat. I just want to get to the end and solve the problem. And I'm a problem solver. So if it comes down to we have to sit down and we hash out our differences and everybody hugs afterward, that's great. That's the outcome that I want to see. If it comes down to, well, maybe we're not going to hash out our differences and maybe we're not going to have that hug circle afterward, but you know what? I'm going to make this a legislative priority because it's a legislative priority for me, and you're going to have to go along with it because I was elected partly on this principle. That's what it's going to have to be. But I also, I always offer the carrot before I offer the stick. And it's very important when you look at the makeup of the Board of Supervisors to have that coalition, to people who can legislate, as I said before, beyond our current lame duck board. I'm backing Melissa Bourbonnais for District 1 because we have extremely similar legislative priorities. And we're going to work together to make sure that some of these can actually happen and we can move forward with some progress in our county. That's what the fundamental aspect of our board is that we're lacking right now. We have too many disparate voices that can't reach a consensus because their governing philosophy is far too different. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. All right, so just very quickly, I want to throw my 2 cents on this because honestly, I think these kind of discussions on some level are BS because this shouldn't be happening at a local community level in the counties. It shouldn't be happening at the state level. This needs to be solved at the federal level.
Hello.
All right, and we need to start following the damn science. Right? There's been tons of research on this. We know why this stuff works, but there's a massive lobbying effort to stop it so they can get you on more addictive drugs instead. Right? So we need to break through that lobbyist nonsense here. We need to get clean candidates in here that are not taking that money here, and we need to change the damn laws at the federal level so that people on the county and state levels do not have to deal with this crap.
We need to keep in mind that Riverside County and San Bernardino counties are very conservative counties. I got a call from someone that wanted to support me that was really upset at Steve Manos. You know that Councilman Manos, Mayor Manos, is approving marijuana stores in the city. And I'm thinking, yes. And I'm also thinking, and Steve did that because our state law says he's supposed to. The people went through the process of getting a permit to do it. They did everything that they were supposed to. And yet we still have ignorant people that are going to get upset at their city councilman for following the law. Do they really want Steve? And I know him. I just talked to his dad this morning. He's not a bad guy. He's my opponent, but he's still not a bad guy. And I'm going, do you really want Steve to vote no along with the rest of that council so that we can cause all these lawsuits to be filed against the city? Because that's exactly what it would lead to. So maybe, wherever that person went to, maybe some of those growers need to start filing lawsuits against the county and other agencies. I really look at that as being more effective, and it's going to get results a whole lot more quickly. That's about it.
No, they're just planting the next day after the raid and wasting more tax dollars.
What I'm saying is that those growers need to be suing the county. Suing the county.
It's more
not complaining about the county.
It's just more profitable to replant right now, is all.
Fine, and they're always going to have that problem then, until the county decides we can't win this battle. Right now, they're still thinking they can, because once again, it's a conservative county. It's not like LA and some other places.
I just want to say quick thank you for your question, because this was a question that was in one of the newspapers and I wasn't fully aware of it, so it did give me the opportunity to research and reach out to different people in the community and have a conversation about that, so I appreciate this question.
I want to just talk about the great green rush, California's green rush. California has always been a growing state. We export fruits, vegetables, but we cannot export cannabis. And up in the Coachella Valley, there are production houses up there. They're going out of business. $90,000 they spend in there. They can't, because they cannot take their product over the state line. Instead, we have the big pharma cartel, the real cartel, who wants to hang on to the rights to that. Or we have the tobacco cartel, the multinational corporations that want to hold on to the rights to really produce it, just like Big Agra. These are the cartels that we're up against. They're not interested in having small businesses become independent. They're not interested in, when it's finally legal in the United States, by the time that happens, those permits are going to be so expensive, they're the only ones that are going to be able to afford to have them. And that's what we're up against, and that's why we need Liam.
We have another question?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
ma'am. I'm a retired teacher, and I really appreciate hearing from, there's so many other teachers here and people who support teachers. When I retired, I found that I had time to become politically active, and I worked in 2018 on Julia Peacock's campaign, a lot of canvassing and things like that, and we just worked really hard, and I began to feel it was almost a quixotic kind of thing because of the way this district is. And then I saw online that Liam believes he can be Ken Calvert, which I would absolutely love to see. I was just wondering, what are some of the things, I mean, I don't really know how it works, but I mean, is it TV? Is it billboards, signs? Is it just canvassing? What do you expect to do to be Ken Calvert? Because, yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, there's actually a lot to this. It's a really complicated question. And elections do cost a lot of money. One of the things that's hurt the most here is it's very difficult to fundraise in these inland districts. And people have not nationally been paying enough attention to these districts as a consequence. The demography has been changing. The number of Republicans in my district has fallen by 10% in the last 10 years. Almost 10%. It keeps going down. It's mostly the independents, but that's fine. A lot of younger people don't have the sort of like tribal loyalty to one or the other, but there's still voters that we can win over. So these districts can be won. The 42nd can be won, the 8th can be won, even the 50th can be won with the right kind of candidates. You can do these things, but it does take raising money, and it does take a lot of boots on the ground. It takes a combination of them. I really respected the Peacock campaign's ground game, like the canvassing. They did a fantastic job there. But we need to coordinate better with tons of other organizations and campaigns so we don't duplicate efforts. So use our money more wisely, because we're never going to get as much as the Republicans. And we need to increase the amount of money we get. One of the things that I've done from the beginning of the campaign is try to raise the national profile of the district. And I've been picking up endorsements and support from all across the country as a consequence. I've been slowly building up relationships with different groups here, and people are saying, you know, this makes sense, and they're throwing money into it. Yeah, if we can keep building on that, if we can build up the fundraising engine there and build up a larger ground game like that, like you had, we can win this.
Yeah, we were very, I felt that the lack of money was a real problem. And also the fact she was a teacher, she was afraid to put a sign anywhere except in somebody's yard, because apparently Calvert can put them anywhere they want, but you know, she could get sued or something. I don't know. She put signs everywhere. I felt it was very constrained, and it really, I'm just hoping that we can do a much more widespread one this time.
Well, I bought 1,500 of them. I'm stapling these things up everywhere I can. If anyone wants to help out, I mean, we need more volunteers. I've got tons of them in the car. I mean, I will put these things everywhere. Right?
So we don't have
we will continue to do that. We will do more of that in the general election as well. I will continue to build up in that. You asked specifically about television and billboards. I will honestly argue they're not all that important for it, because it's extraordinarily expensive, and it goes for a smaller and smaller chunk of the electorate. There are a lot of people you can reach with direct canvassing, tons of people you can reach with the social media stuff. There's tons of the texting. We have a fantastic texting operation right now. We've hit about 40,000 people in the first 3 days of this thing. By the end of the week, we will have hit every single Democrat who's voted in the last few elections. Right? There are ways you can actually reach out to people. Right? We can build up the infrastructure to do that.
Yeah, I just got a text from you a couple of days ago. Yeah. Just because I'm a Democrat, I'm like, wow, that's great. Thank you.
Well, I was thinking about the expense of the billboard, and I think that if we put all of our faces on it and shared the expense, we would be okay. Let's get it on the 15. How's that? And again, I think speaking to the issues that are most important to our communities is a way of connecting with the voters and a way of reaching them so that they begin to realize that no one else is talking to them about solutions and finding more and more solutions for the issues impacting our communities. I think that's how we can reach out to a variety of constituents.
And then there's dark money. We need more transparency in knowing who's actually funding campaigns. I can tell you that right now. Because they have this thing called independent expenditures. You never know who's really putting money into that. As a candidate, you don't know who's going to hit you and what they're going to hit you on. Because it won't be the candidate doing it. There'll just be somebody who wants to influence that campaign, and you'll never know where that money came from. And we have to stop that. That Citizens United, bad decision. Bad decision. And every Democrat, and I will tell you this, every Democrat, and I'm sure every candidate up here, probably gets $25, $50. When I get a donation like that, I look at it and I think, Melendez is already sitting with how much? $400,000? I'm getting 25, 50, but I know this. My small donations that I get means I'm getting votes.
That's right.
And that's how I look at it. But as Democrats, we don't really think about getting together and bundling funds and doing that for our candidates. And we have to start thinking about that. Because Republicans, there's less of them, but they're all on board. In my district right now, the Republicans are flooding the other Democratic candidates. And they're calling that working across the aisle. And sometimes I think if I work across the aisle, I'm like, well, I won't go what I might do if I reach there. But it's tough. It's a tough thing because, first of all, that is what candidates do. You think candidates are over here? It's amazing we know as much as we do about legislation. I can tell you that because I'm sure every person up here is sitting on the telephone and saying, can I have $10? Right? And just think of this. The guy who's standing on the corner with a sign needing money because he needs food, I'm doing the same thing, but it's not for food. It's just for a race that I am trying to win so that I can be a voice for him. It's incredible, but I'm not out there for the sustainable things that I need, and I'm still out there with my hand out. So it's an amazing thing. All day long, in between while we're getting ready for our questionnaires that we're filling out, trying to get money and everything else, and learning about everything we need to do and getting ourselves ready for the people that we're running against and on the other side. It's that money thing. That is all we do. And then you get elected and you have 2 years and you're back at it. So it's no wonder nothing ever gets done. You're a career politician, you better know how to say, at this point, I don't even know if I have any friends anymore. They see me coming, they say, oh, she wants a couple of dollars. Here she comes. Yeah, it's rough like that. But that's all you do. Because just because you're trying to serve people. It shouldn't be that way. We have got to change how campaigns, and there's got to be a cap on it. There's got to be a cap on how much. Look at these billionaires that are running for president. They walk in with all this cash, you get 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 pieces of direct mail. We're not going to be able to afford that. That has got to stop. There has to be a cap. It's got to be a level playing field so that we can get some real representation. We have to have the people's voice because we, the people, are the resistance.
All right, so Joy, thank you again. I love you. You're fantastic. All right, so we need to change campaign finance laws at the federal level. We absolutely do, and we know how to do it. But you know why we can't do it, right? Because everyone in Congress should be wearing a NASCAR jacket with all their actual owners on them. They're all taking this money. They're all taking this money, right? We need to get them out. Yes. To get them out involves us stepping up. And yes, we waste a lot of time begging people for money that we could be spending actually out there doing something, that make it easier to win these races too. So if more people kind of helped out with those and got involved, even if you can't contribute more there, you can help spread the word. Right, connect to other people. Today, at this point, it is so easy to raise money digitally, and there are a number of candidates in Congress now who are raising money all over the country digitally without having to make telephone calls because they built those networks. If we can expand our own connections, if we can tap into that same kind of energy, it wouldn't take many years of this for us to actually change the laws, because you'd put enough people in office who would actually do it, and then we can stop. Right? So if we step up a little bit here, we can change this system.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is now 8:10. That brings us to the end. I want to have a big thank you to our audience. Thank you for participating. And of course, a big, big thank you to this wonderful, beautiful art gallery. Thank you so much for allowing us to celebrate us here. And a giant thank you to all of the candidates really trying to bring change to our community. Thank you so much, each and every one of you. Can we take a group photo over on the couch? Is that a good idea? And there's still food. Thank you, everyone.